Hi there, 2 minutes to 6 here in Moscow. You're live with our international live news event to bring you. Let's go straight to Antalya in Turkey. President Putin is giving a news conference at the G20 summit there. Let's listen in.
Ensure a return of that money, and also in order to put Ukraine in a tight spot, in a tight fix, we've taken an unusual and an unexpected decision. Not only have we offered to restructure that loan, but we actually offered better conditions to Ukraine than requested by the IMF. We had been requested to postpone payment until next year, and I told them that we were prepared to choose a deeper restructuring so that this year we would not get paid back at all, and next year get 1 billion, next year to 2017 to get another billion, and 2018 another billion. But since our counterparts are confident that the Ukrainian government will be growing more solvent, and they believe that there is no reason to doubt that they'll be even able to pay us back 3 billion next year, and in that case it is no problem to provide safeguards, to provide guarantees to us, and we requested such guarantees either from the government of the United States or the EU or some one of the renowned international financial institutions. We hope that this issue will be resolved by December this year due to the specific timetable, the specific schedule of the IMF. We discussed this issue with Madame Lagarde, and today, in passing, we even discussed it with the US President and the US Treasurer. I can tell you that this proposal was met with interest, and we have agreed with our partners that in the nearest future we would discuss its details. Indeed, if our counterparts believe that Ukraine will be growing more solvent, and they're trying to convince us of that, that means they believe that themselves. If they believe it themselves, let them provide us guarantees. And if they do not provide us guarantees, that would mean they do not believe in Ukraine's future solvency. And that would be bad. That would mean that they're trying to convince us of something they don't believe in themselves. And that also would not be a hopeful sign for our Ukrainian counterparts. But we see no problem with sharing risks with our partners. The Российская Gazeta newspaper, Mr. Putin, it was said a lot about Turkey's presidency being consistent with that of Russia. With regard to the previous summit in Petersburg, do you think this consistency has been confirmed? Indeed, we've worked closely at the expert level within the framework of G20 to implement our past proposals of St. Petersburg to prevent tax evasion and to prevent a contraction of the taxable base. In Russia, we developed a whole set of measures, and we even adopted a federal law on controlled foreign companies. Within the framework of the arrangements we had arrived at in Petersburg, at the expert level, we worked actively with the OECD representatives, and we have drawn up a roadmap, an action plan to that end, and we just mentioned that now we are about to start to get down to implementing it. So we do see Turkey's presidency as consistent with ours. The same goes for the issue of investment, especially on infrastructure projects.
Chilcote from Bloomberg Television. There's been a lot of talk about
There's been a lot of talk following the latest events in Paris. There was speculation that there might be qualitative changes in the relationship between Russia and the West following these recent terrorist attacks. So do you believe in that, and do you see any actual evidence of that, judging by your latest meetings with the UK Prime Minister and the US President? Well, you know, we never rejected better relations with any of our partners, be that in the West or in the East. Any action on their part curbing and limiting our collaboration have been initiated by our partners, by our counterparts, not by ourselves. If our partners believe it is time to change our relationship now, we have nothing against that. We never shut our doors on our counterparts. It did seem to us that at least at the expert level, at the level of deliberating and discussing issues, we are seeing clear interest in resuming collaboration and joint activities on many issues, including the economy, politics, and security. And during last year's meeting of G20, some said that you were a rogue state, that you were a pariah in the G20, and now you are seen as an equal partner on Syria. What has changed? Do you agree with these assessments? And what do you think about this turn of tide? Well, of course, last year I already said that our Australian counterparts had provided a very good enabling environment for joint activities. Everything was very correct, but probably there was this temptation to present it to the international community as if Russia was isolated. But this was not the case, and me leaving earlier, ahead of the end of the meeting, it was a technical decision. I just didn't want to stand in line for departure. That's why I left earlier. It was a 14 flight to Moscow, so I just had to be on the first jet to leave. I know the way protocol services work, scheduling departure from those summits, and I didn't want to wait for 13 hours before I was able to leave. Otherwise, we didn't have any issues either back then or today, even though the relations were more strained 1 year ago, and now it's becoming palpable. But of course, life goes on. New issues and new threats and new challenges arise. And those challenges it's difficult to address on your own, whoever you are. You need to join efforts. RIA Novosti news agency. I would like to go back to the issue of terrorism. Over the past few months, there's been a series of tragic events all over the world. Explosions in Baghdad, attempted terrorist attacks in Istanbul, the crash of the Russian jet, even though there's been no final conclusion, but all experts agree that you can't rule out a terrorist attack. And now these latest harrowing terrorist attacks in Paris. France has launched a massive offensive in Syria. Every leader at any multilateral meeting or any press appearance spoke of the necessity to join forces. Do you think it would be possible to form a common anti-terrorism coalition? And what would it look like? What would its parameters? What would it be about? I don't only believe it would be possible. I think it is also necessary to form such a coalition. And I spoke of that at the 70th session of the UN General Assembly, dedicated to the 70th anniversary since the establishment of the organization. And the most recent tragic events have only proved us right. As for how this coalition should look like, it's really nothing complicated. We would need to start some actual joint activities, joint operations on combating terrorism. We have offered cooperation in fighting ISIS. Unfortunately, our American partners initially refused us. They actually forwarded us a written statement saying they were turning down our proposal. But indeed, life goes on, and very rapidly so. And very often, it has lessons for us to learn. And today, everybody is getting this awareness, finally, that the only efficient way to combat terrorism would be joint action. We have never shut our doors for cooperation, and we believe such collaboration could be achieved not only on an intergovernmental level, but also between secret services. They could warn each other, they could update each other, they could give each other's heads-up warning of risks and threats. As for Syria, we need to primarily make up our minds, and our foreign ministers are now working at that. Which groups we believe to be terrorist organizations and which groups we could consider as parts of the Syrian opposition, armed but rational, reasonable. And we should concentrate our efforts on fighting terrorist groups in order to provide an enabling environment for a political solution, for a political process in Syria. Vesti FM Radio. Mr. Putin, on the sidelines of the summit, you had a meeting with President Erdogan of Turkey, for the first time since the